Hello and welcome to the Eclipse Evolution podcast. I'm your host, Savannah Rose Johnson. I'm very excited to connect with you on this big day. It's April the 19th, 2023, and there's a lot cooking, a lot cooking energetically, historically, that I'm just excited to share with you. And hopefully some of it resonates with you. So what's significant about today is a few things. So one, it's Bicycle Day. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this holiday, so to speak, I'm happy to explain that. It's also the solar eclipse / new moon. So if you're into astronomy / astrology, we have that cooking up right now in the Aries placement. That'll be happening tonight, standard time, 12:12. And then tomorrow we have the start of Taurus season. And then the following day after that, we have the start of the first Mercury retrograde of our year. So a whole lot going on. And then this past couple weeks ago, we had Easter. It's been a whole lot. A big season of transformation. That is the name of the game right now. And so starting with Bicycle Day. So Bicycle Day is the recorded holiday for those of us in the psychedelic community. And so Albert Hoffman, he's the guy who cooked up LSD for the first time in the laboratory, was just trying to find some new medicines, and ingested LSD, had, of course, at that time, no idea what he just invented, and then proceeded to take what he said was a very interesting bike ride home. And so for any of you who have experienced the psychedelic journey before, whatever substance it is, typically there's kind of a delay in the onset, and then it kind of starts to creep in, and then boom, you're in the experience, and that is what happened. So if only we could be a fly on the wall for that day. So that being said, happy Bicycle Day. And being a practitioner, an integrative practitioner when it comes to different psychedelics, primarily ketamine is what I use with people, how I support them in those experiences. There's such an interesting paradigm shift that's happening right now, which I'm sure you may have heard some of the chatter when it comes down to legalizing this and that, or decriminalizing certain things. So it's really cool to have been in this space, particularly with ketamine in more of like a clinical therapeutic setting, and helping coach people with that integration when it comes down to preparing for their experiences and then supporting them throughout. And then a lot of the work really to be done is kind of after the fact, and integrating what they learned or different meaning they may have gained or anything, that comes up in those experiences, being able to tie that into their life moving forward. And so even ketamine's origin is really interesting. It doesn't have a holiday yet, even though the Bicycle Day is kind of an umbrella. I hope one day to see there become a ketamine day, because it's been a really special tool, honestly, medicine. And I'm glad that it was able to escape the war on drugs, political drama, and rules and regulations, where of course like some of that stuff is really important and helpful to keep people safe. A lot of it has, unfortunately, on the extreme side, prevented a lot of us to be able to research certain things and the benefits until more recently. So in particular with like MDMA or psilocybin, even LSD, being able to see how these different medicines and plant medicines are able to help people heal and become even better versions of themselves. So with ketamine, it's really cool how it started out as just a regular old anesthesia. It was really popular because it's kind of magical in the fact that it doesn't slow down respiration. So for people who maybe are maxed out on other types of anesthesia, or maybe they just have more sensitivity or don't need to have any risk of lower respiration or heart issues or whatever the case may be, ketamine was a really good alternative for them. And it started out kind of in the late 1960s. It was really popular in the Vietnam War, and that was because it's really, really, really hard to overdose on ketamine, unlike other anesthesias, where if your math is off by a little bit, you could be in a big pickle. So ketamine has very different properties, and even just how it affects our brain when it comes down to the glutamate and production in our brain and the effect that it has on neuroplasticity is really even unique in comparison to other psychedelics out there. So even though ketamine's not classified as like a traditional psychedelic, it's more still in that not antihistamine. I always say that. Anesthesia, there we go. Even though it's more classified in the anesthesia realm, it does at certain dosing amounts have more of that experiential component that can classify it as like a psychedelic experience. And kind of low levels are what we call more psycholytic. So you're still present in the space, you can talk, but it's kind of like having a few drinks in you, like your inhibitions are a little lowered. So sometimes your stuff that's maybe buried in your subconscious is more easy to come out. You're not like actively judging or being careful about what you're saying. Your inhibitions are lowered, so stuff can just come out. But in the therapeutic approach, that can be helpful for some people. And then like when you kind of bump it up a little bit more, that's when you could have this potentially psychedelic experiences. And then up from there would be more of like the, we're knocking you out cold, we're doing surgery on your knee kind of thing. So that's a little bit how it has been used, and it got popular in the Vietnam War because of its flexibility with dosing and how you don't have to be super careful with that part. A lot of the soldiers would carry around syringes or vials of ketamine, and if one of their soldier buddies got really crucially wounded, they could just kind of like an EpiPen, just stick them with that ketamine. It would help that person with their experience, with the pain levels that they were in, and then allow them to be able to hold on enough to get to medical services. So that's how it was kind of nicknamed a buddy drug, because a lot of the soldiers could just give it to their buddies. So that's how it got started. But then, of course, as there is often a shadow side to everything in life, of course, sometimes the uncontrolled use of that substance can lead it to more of the substance abuse route, which, that can happen with anything. That can happen with aspirin, it's not the drug's fault or the substance's fault sometimes. But in particular, because of the challenge with overdosing, it did start to have a little bit of a tendency with the abuse side of what we have maybe heard of, like K-holes and whatnot. And it also has the nickname of being like a horse tranquilizer, which is true because of its kind of like effects that it can have on our visualization and the experience that I'm referencing. Some people didn't necessarily like that if they were just trying to get a knee surgery or whatnot. And so it moved more into the veterinary science spaces. So it really was a horse tranquilizer, maybe not so much tranquilizer. I mean, yes, but more like a horse anesthesia, because you could, again, administer it in really big quantities. So it's still used in a lot of veterinary sciences to this day. It's a lot of times a very crucial part of a euthanasia process. It's kind of what they give to animals before the actual euthanization to allow them to be in that comfortable, blissful place before passing on. And so, yeah, I mean, it is and can be used for really good stuff too, and have a lot of different uses. And so that's kind of how it was almost accidentally beginning to be used as like a therapeutic intervention. So again, it was still used in human surgeries and as a human anesthesia for some time, maybe not super frequently, but there was just a lot of correlation popping up of maybe people going in for a hip replacement, coming out with no depression. And so it was really interesting and got the attention of some people eventually. And then it started to be used more in the therapeutic wellness space, the mental wellness space. And so that's where I come in. Here we are, we've evolved. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up today. It's one, a part of celebrating Bicycle Day, but then also two, when it comes down to my mission, my Eclipse Evolution brand, so to speak. I mean, Eclipse we have the eclipse day. So eclipse is all about big energy shifts, big changes, sometimes not always the easy changes to go through, but the ones that are the most transformative, the ones that nature intends for us to go through. And then evolution, not so much as far as like Darwin and whatnot, which I mean, that stuff is cool too, but me, I'm more so wanting to just focus on change over time, like how things just naturally can evolve and almost like more going with the flow, so to speak. And so that's some of the reason behind I've called this podcast Eclipse Evolution, my whole brand itself, Eclipse Evolution. And here we are today talking about the evolution of psychedelics and the big eclipse energy we have going on at the same time. So very exciting. And it's definitely a big day just as far as like where I'm at personally in my journey. I'm just really grateful for the seeds of transformation and opportunities that are being planted right now. And I'm just really grateful for this community that we're building together through this podcast. It's just been so much fun hearing everyone's feedback, and just the connection that I have with other people is my ultimate inspiration. So just thank you for all the support and for following and sharing. It's just been really magical how things are just continuing to evolve and transform. And I've had some questions come up for me lately when it comes down to like my own spiritual beliefs, given that I really love astrology. I'm Reiki certified. I love tarot. I love all the things. I'm like a perpetual learner. I'm just always curious. And I definitely have to credit a lot of that open-mindedness to actually growing up in the Lutheran church. And I know when it comes down to formal religion and Christianity, sometimes spirituality and Christianity they're often separated, and there's this kind of divide between the two. Like if you practice one, you can't practice the other. And I just don't really believe that to be true. And I think in particular, being a Lutheran, having Martin Luther, I mean, we have Martin Luther King Jr., who is a very more recent prominent figure, but who he was named after, Martin Luther, the monk. He is, I don't know if you've ever heard of what we call Reformation Sunday, but it was when the Protestant branches basically were born. And it was a really big day where Martin Luther, because he was in the church, he was a monk, and this is during the times of very, very heavy Catholicism. And I love him. He's such a Scorpio because he really challenges the status quo, and he didn't give a you-know-what about the rules and the authority from politics. And he just was all about connecting with what he believed was right and what he believed to be true and actually helpful for other people. And that's how we have Reformation Sunday, because at that day and time, basically our version of Twitter was you would nail something to like the front door of the church, and that was kind of like the bulletin board, like how a lot of news got out. And so here comes Martin Luther on Reformation Sunday, and he proceeds to nail over 90, I think it was like 95 theses, so basically just like statements. So if you have like a thesis to a paper, like an argument, basically. He nailed 95 theses to the front door of the Catholic Church, basically calling out all the corruption, calling out all the stuff that he disagreed with, and how the church and like how the leaders of the community weren't actually helping people, and that he was all about. It was, you don't have to pay money to go to heaven. You don't have to do like all these razzle dazzle things to go to heaven. It's like, it's your own personal journey, and it is through the grace of God that you're going to be okay. And that's enough to pave the way towards you living a life that you can do good. It's not like you have to earn your ticket into heaven. It's not up to humankind to decide what happens to anyone when we pass away. That's beyond us. And so I think growing up in that style of church, where I've worked with people with religious trauma where it's been quite the opposite experience, where it's that kind of fire and brimstones and and guilting and shaming people for living their life, and really strict, and it just makes my heart just heavy hearing about experiences like that, because I feel like it kind of takes away from the whole point of religion and spirituality. And so that's why, like, even in my work with psychedelics, I know I have even faced some backlash when it comes down to being in the spiritual realm or the religious realm, and how all these things are separate, yet I just don't feel like they have to always be separate. I think it's everyone's own personal journey, whatever you want to believe. If it works for you, if it allows you to have structure and to do good in this earth and to proceed with peace and confidence and connection to others, like, who am I and who is anyone else to say that that's bad or wrong? It's not up to us. I mean, even in Christianity, the whole expression of like only God can judge, I'm like, hello, so like, why are we judging people for doing what they want to do? And then even just through psychedelic experiences, if anything, that has enhanced my faith, my spiritual journey I'm on, being able to really experience this almost like quantum healing throughout my body, my mind, my soul, and something even that is taught, at least it was to me in my Lutheran upbringing, is this terminology called perichoresis. And if in the Christianity faith, there's the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost also called. I don't really like that word ghost. It's like, it's not exactly a peaceful word to me, at least. So I say Holy Spirit. And so it's like how the Holy Spirit lives within us, and like we are made of it. And then of course we have Jesus and we have God, so forth. And so the perichoresis is really like a perfect harmony between the three of these. One is not more important than the other. They're all perfectly in sync and balanced with each other and working together for us. And so how I guess like my own interpretation of that has evolved with this spiritual journey that I'm on, and including psychedelics in that, it's just undeniable for me that, like, whether it's God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, whoever you want to call it, how just it's all connected. Like, we're all connected, and how much of a part we are connected to that. It's not something that we have to achieve for, and maybe someday we'll get it. That grace, that peace, that spirit is already within us, working towards us, whether you want to call it your higher self. That's something I definitely connect to. It's all something that still has an air of mystery between it. And that's why I use the word quantum, because it's kind of like the space between atoms and particles. It's like the energy that flows between, electrons and everything. It's like that kind of unexplainable, mystical, like magical element of our existence, our makeup, our consciousness even. And how sometimes, like, we don't need to have all the answers to that. I mean, can we even fully grasp all the answers with that? And I think that's something that is really humbling, and something that I try to even kind of keep in mind is like, I'm not meant to know everything. And that kind of desire to know everything, I think it can take away from our faith, our spirituality experience, because if we think we know everything, then we think we have a sense of control over everything. And the surrender is where the faith really takes place, like a trust fall, if you want to think of it like that, like a spiritual life trust fall, where it's, if you're rigid and don't back down, you can't ever like feel the embrace of being like held and supported and to receive. And that's such a huge part of, at least I believe, faith and spirituality is, it's very much like what we're able to contribute to the world, but also it's what can it give back to us? How can it fill us up and give us this experience of fulfillment? Like, nothing is lacking within us. Like, we already have everything that we need, and just to be able to enjoy, to kind of turn away from feeling like we have to do all the time and just to be. And I think children, why I love education so much and why I love kids and animals so much is because of the innocence, the levity that comes behind like not needing that kind of control. Like I think about like my animals and how like there's so much trust between me and my cats, for example, and how like I'll hold them like little babies and they don't try to get away. They just accept it and lay there and receive my love. And then when they start to get a little antsy, that's when I'll put them down. But that trust is there and they allow themselves to be held. And even with kids, it's like kids are just, they just have such a beautiful mentality where if you just say anything like, hey, we're going to go to Disney World, or even if they have no idea what Disney World is, they're excited for it. Their default setting isn't to need to know all the answers. It isn't, unless they're at that age where they start asking why. But it isn't to know all the answers or to know everything. It's very much like they're just excited to see what's going to happen, and they're just excited regardless because it's something new. Whereas I think that's something that we tend to disconnect from as adults. It's like sometimes the unknown is actually something that's really scary. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that faith and the tools of psychedelics can show us is how much we can let go and how we can surrender and allow things to come to us, and that we don't have to make up the meaning about it right away, but that we may never know every single answer, but that it doesn't mean that life isn't lacking anything. I mean, just because a painting is incomplete doesn't mean that it's not already a work of art, so to speak. And so that being said, I just hope that you can reflect and take time for yourself, because all this big energy that's cooking up right now can kind of wear us out, especially if you're more of like a empathic person like myself. Just there's a lot cooking. I need I need to stay hydrated. I need to have food. I need to stretch and sleep. Our bodies can really feel this energy, just as the cycles of the moon and control the tides and everything. It has an effect on us as well. So take it slow. Don't make up your mind right away, especially with retrograde, which can cause lots of delays and technical problems. And I say it's a season. It usually lasts about 3 weeks. Mercury retrograde specifically, which is what's happening on Friday. It's a time for a lot of things to fall apart in order for something new to come together. And so it can be a frustrating time if we're still trying to hold on to that control and not just surrendering to the process, letting things work out, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes that, again, we might not understand or that might not be visible to us. So don't rely on your own understanding. Don't feed in too much to the excess chatter of the world, but tune into yourself, tune into what you feel within your soul, within your body, and know that it deserves to be listened to, and that it's powerful, and it's anchoring you to this whole collective of life that we are all a part of and connected to. And so I hope you take that with you today. Look for the beauty that's around us. Don't sweat the things that are temporary, because ultimately everything is. So if kinks do show up in your life, take that time to decompress, to relax. Know that it's going to work itself out over time. It might not be on your timeline, but ultimately it is temporary. It will pass. And if you have any questions from me regarding how to be safe when it comes down to psychedelics, if you want to know what to do during or after, which is where I really focus with people on integration appointments with them, how to take that experience and weave it into your life to keep those themes alive, reach out. That's what I'm here for. I love connecting. I love being with you, holding that space for you, because we really are, not to sound cheesy, but we really are all in this together. We really are all connected, and it is my pleasure to be on this journey with you and to be alive during this time with you. So let's celebrate that. And so with that, thank you again for your time, for supporting all my projects. And I can't wait to see how this continues to grow with you, alongside you. So with that, have a wonderful bicycle day, a wonderful solar eclipse today, new moon cycle. Have a wonderful Taurus season starting up, all about just soaking up life and going slow and enjoying just the pleasures of this earth and what it provides us. And then retrograde is all about just out with the old and with the new. So with that, take care of yourself, take care of others, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye for now.